Shaun Donovan. I'm running for mayor of New York City.
Okay, why are you running for mayor of New York City?
New York is in crisis, and we need a mayor who understands how to lead and rebuild this city from crisis. Nobody in this race has more experience doing that than I have. I was housing commissioner in this city in the wake of 9/11. President Obama asked me to be his housing secretary in the midst of the worst housing crisis of our lifetimes. When Sandy hit our shores, he asked me to lead the entire federal recovery. And then he asked me to lead the $4 trillion federal budget and work with Dr. Fauci and so many other leaders to get Ebola and Zika under control. That leadership through crisis, combined with big, bold ideas about the future of this city, how to bring the city back, how to rebuild and reimagine the city better than it was before the crisis, nobody in this race has the experience to be able to do that than I do.
One thing that people, or one hurdle, I guess, for you to overcome is just the name recognition issue. But you've worked a lot locally and in the federal government, and with the now President Joe Biden. So how can you help New York City get the funding that it needs working with Washington?
Well, nobody is in a better position to get New York City the help we need at this moment of crisis than I am. Not only do I have deep relationships and friendships with President Biden and Vice President Harris, nearly every senior leader in the Biden administration is a colleague and a friend. Members of Congress are people I've worked with for decades. And this isn't just some abstract notion. This isn't just having somebody's phone number. This is actually being able to put federal money to work on behalf of New Yorkers. Let me give you one example. We're standing in public housing. We need $40 billion to rebuild our public housing. I've committed the boldest housing plan that would put $2 billion a year of city capital into public housing, but we're going to need help from the federal government as well. I've already been in touch with the incoming housing secretary in the Biden administration. I know her well. Many people who work for me are at the agency. I am the one candidate in this race who can actually turn rhetoric into reality and get the help we need. A second example I'd give you, when COVID hit, I knew that folks were going hungry. Here in Bushwick, across Brooklyn, across the city, I got restaurants cooking, raised over $1 million, delivered 40,000 meals to families in need. We can do that with FEMA dollars, with federal money. I know how to unlock what could be billions of dollars to get our restaurants cooking in a time of need and feed those who are going hungry today. Those are the kinds of differences for real people in this city that I could make as mayor.
So, for instance, the Restaurant Act has yet to be passed, and the people in the restaurant industry here, that's 300,000 jobs at least, have been begging for some sort of federal aid. They're not getting anything from the city or from the state right now. So how would you fix that problem?
Well, absolutely the Restaurant Act should pass, but we don't need to wait for the Restaurant Act to pass. FEMA can pay for meals in this city right now. I started a program that showed how it could be done, and guess what? In New Orleans, in California, the mayor, the governor there, they knew it was right and they got it started. Our mayor here didn't take up that opportunity, didn't start that program, and folks are going hungry as a result. We need a mayor who actually knows how to unlock this kind of help today. Not wait for Congress, but to do it today. And I've reached out. Ali Mayorkas, the incoming Homeland Security Secretary, is a good friend of mine, somebody who's supported my campaign. I've reached out to talk to him about it to try to get this money flowing now, even before I'm elected as mayor.
So you're saying use FEMA money to help small businesses, not necessarily to fund meals for people, but to help small businesses?
Use FEMA money to help small businesses, including restaurants. Our restaurants could cook emergency meals paid for by FEMA. This is especially important right now as the restaurants are closed during the winter. We need to make sure that before outdoor dining starts again, we're getting our restaurants cooking, and they can cook emergency meals paid for by the federal government, get folks back to work, and feed the hungry. Those are all key issues in this city right now. We need a mayor who understands how to bring innovative solutions that could end that problem right now.
Deal with the rezoning process that's very much flawed.
Well, we need to do three things. I just released the boldest, broadest, most comprehensive housing plan of anyone in the race. We're running the campaign of ideas every single week. I've been releasing a comprehensive, detailed plan about the future of this city. On housing, we need to do three things. We need to help people stay in their homes and make sure we preserve the affordable housing that we have. I've been working with Congress to make sure that we extended the eviction moratorium. I helped negotiate the $25 billion in rental assistance that is now coming to keep New Yorkers in their homes, but we have to do more than that. We need more legal assistance, we need more other help to make sure folks can stay in their homes, and we need to fix public housing. We have a $40 billion gap that we have to close. I've committed more than any other candidate in the race, $2 billion a year of city money to help fix public housing, but we're also going to need federal help as well, so that's key. So preserving our affordable housing, keeping folks in their homes is the first thing. Second thing, we need to make sure that we are building more truly affordable housing in every community in this city. That means we have to start with the community. We have to create a truly community-oriented planning process. That's what I've done my whole career, whether it's at Villa Verde in the Bronx, where I announced my campaign, or all over Brooklyn. I've been able to work effectively with communities to make their vision for true affordability come to life, starting in Brooklyn with the Nehemiah homes. 25 years ago, I worked with Bishop Youngblood, East Brooklyn congregations, worked in the South Bronx with South Bronx churches. We built over 5,000 affordable homes. 90% of the folks that bought those homes moved straight out of public housing, bought their first home, and guess what? Today they've built wealth. They're able to stay in New York, they're not getting gentrified out, and they've been able to pass on that wealth to their kids to go to college and so many other things. So we need truly affordable housing, and we need to change the way we plan so that every community is part of the solution. So the last thing we need to do is end homelessness. I began my career volunteering in a homeless shelter in college. I worked for the National Coalition for the Homeless, and I know that homelessness is a solvable problem. And yet we have more homeless folks on our streets in our shelters today than we've had since the Great Depression, more than when I was a kid growing up in this city. And that's wrong. We need to reimagine our right to shelter as a right to housing. And if we do that, we can end homelessness in this city.
A lot of what I was reading about your plan focused on empty space, and empty space is usually bought up by developers and turned into, let's say, a hotel rather than housing. So how would you work with large-scale developers to optimize the empty space that the city has to create housing for more people?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that our precious land that we have, city-owned land, every time we develop city-owned land, it has to be permanently affordable housing and truly affordable housing. So that's the first thing. Second, when we're working with private developers, we need to make sure that it is not an option to develop affordable housing, that it is required, and it's required everywhere in the city. So my proposal is that we create an inclusionary housing program that covers the entire city, not rezoning by rezoning, not one step at a time. Right now, we should have affordable housing required all over.
Obviously, there's a total divide between police and the people who are being policed. How can we go about reforming the NYPD so that community policing works the way it's supposed to work?
Well, first of all, unlike so many people in this race, this is not rhetoric to me, it's reality. I worked with President Obama on the 21st Century Policing Task Force led by Eric Holder. I saw that you can actually reform policing and make sure that particularly Black and brown communities are safe and respected at the same time. I was the leader of an effort to take away military equipment from our police departments. They were getting free military equipment from the federal government. When I became budget director, we ended that practice. That was one of the things that was destroying the relationship between police and communities.
I think you mentioned also, sorry to cut you off, the concept of police not having to do work meant for maybe a psychologist or a...
Yeah. Here's what we need to do in New York. We need to reimagine policing, we need to reduce the role of the police, and we need to reinvest in our communities. Reimagining policing means real accountability and transparency. We have to weed out the bad apples in the police force and hold them accountable. Second, we need to reduce the role of the police. Right now, we're asking them to do too many things in our communities that put them in conflict with our communities. So, let me give you some examples. We should stop having the police patrol the hallways of our schools. We should stop having them criminalize homelessness and have to be mental health experts. We should make sure, we just passed an open street walking with Antonio Reynoso. Those streets are 75% of them around the city are the responsibility of police. When we know community organizations do a better job of managing and making sure that they're open to our families and kids. All of those things we could reduce. We should focus the police on guns and violent crime, the things that communities are really concerned about. And then the last thing we need to do is reinvest. We spend over $400,000 per prisoner per year at Rikers right now, and we get bad results. If we reinvested that money in communities, we could break the cycle of incarceration. How do I know? When I was housing commissioner, I took some of my housing vouchers, gave them to folks coming out of Rikers, and the results were remarkable. 95% of them a year later were stably housed, getting back to work, and hadn't reoffended. Imagine what we could do if we invested not just in housing, but job training, education, all the key things that would break the cycle of incarceration. We could put the justice back in our criminal justice system.
Are you in favor of closing Rikers?
I am. Well, first, we have to understand that segregation begins in our housing in our neighborhoods. I've been a leader for my entire career on giving real meaning to the Fair Housing Act, and I would do that as mayor to make sure that our housing is available to anyone, no matter the color of their skin, what language they speak, where they grew up, who they worship. But in our schools, we need to make sure first that we're getting rid of the things that accelerate segregation in our schools. We should take away the middle school screens. We should make sure that we're getting rid of the high school screens that we know are creating more segregation in our schools. But we have to go beyond that. We have to affirmatively make sure we're doing things that create more integration in our schools. What would I do? I would have weighted lotteries. I would make sure that we are growing and creating new schools that are arts-based, are dual language, we know that create real integration and academic success. And the last thing I would do is we can't achieve real integration and equity in our schools unless teachers look like the communities that they teach in. We have 42% teachers of color in a city that has 85% students of color. That's wrong. I've made a specific commitment to getting that fixed and to ensuring our teachers reflect the communities they teach in.